Have you ever noticed how differently Americans and Europeans talk about billionaires? In the US, names like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates are household names, often spoken with a mix of awe, aspiration, and sometimes envy. They're celebrities, innovators, almost modern-day royalty. But cross the Atlantic and the tone shifts dramatically. In Europe, the richest people on the continent, names like Bernard Arnault of LVMH or Amancio Ortega of Zara, can walk down the street in their home countries, and most people wouldn't even recognize them. It's not that Europe doesn't have wealthy people. It's that the culture just doesn't put them on the same pedestal. Why is that? What's behind this wealth without reverence? Let us dive into the deep cultural and historical reasons why Europe just isn't that into billionaires. To understand this, we have to go back in time, way back. For centuries, European society was built on a rigid class system. You had the aristocracy, dukes, earls, and barons, and then you had everyone else. Status wasn't something you could earn with money, it was inherited. It was tied to your bloodline, your family name, and the land you owned. A nouveau rich merchant, no matter how wealthy, would never be seen as equal to a down-on-his-luck nobleman. This idea that true status is separate from money is deeply embedded in the European psyche. While the old aristocracy has mostly faded, the cultural echo remains. Money alone doesn't grant you the highest social standing. Then came the 20th century, a period that reshaped Europe more than any other. 2 world wars ravaged the continent, wiping out old fortunes and forcing entire nations to rebuild from scratch. This shared experience of hardship and reconstruction created a strong sense of collective solidarity. The focus wasn't on individual success, but on rebuilding society together. This led to the rise of the welfare state. In countries like Germany, France, and Sweden, the government took on a huge role in providing for its citizens healthcare, education, pensions. The social contract was clear. Everyone contributes through high taxes, and in return, everyone gets a safety net. This system fundamentally changes how people view extreme wealth. When you know that your healthcare is covered, your kids can go to a good university for free or very little cost, and you'll have a pension when you retire. The desperate scramble to accumulate a massive personal fortune becomes, well, less desperate. The American dream is often about individual triumph over adversity, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. The European dream, if you can call it that, is more about a high quality of life for everyone. A billionaire, in this context, can look less like a hero and more like someone who has taken a disproportionately large slice of the collective pie. This is reflected in the media, too. In the US, you have shows like Shark Tank and magazines like Forbes celebrating entrepreneurship and wealth creation. European media, on the other hand, is often more skeptical. Investigative journalists are more likely to dig into a billionaire's tax arrangement or labor practices than to write a glowing profile about their morning routine. There's a prevailing sense that such extreme wealth must be justified, and that justification isn't just "I created a successful company." It's "what have you contributed back to the society that enabled your success?" Let's talk about what Europeans do value. If it's not just money, what grants you status? The answer is often contribution in other fields. Think about it. Who are the revered figures in Europe? They're often philosophers, artists, scientists, and intellectuals. In France, great writers and thinkers are national heroes. In Germany, engineers and master craftsmen are held in high esteem. In Italy, designers and chefs are cultural icons. Status is tied to cultural, intellectual, or social contribution. It's about mastering a craft, pushing the boundaries of knowledge, or creating something beautiful that enriches society. A professor at a prestigious university or a renowned film director might enjoy more social prestige than a CEO who is 10 times richer. This isn't to say business success isn't respected, but it's seen as just one type of achievement among many, and certainly not the most important one. This cultural difference also shows up in how the wealthy themselves behave. The concept of old money in Europe often comes with a code of conduct, discretion. Flaunting your wealth is considered vulgar. You might have a country estate, but you drive a modest car. You wear a fine watch, but it's understated, not covered in diamonds. This is in stark contrast to the more conspicuous consumption you might see elsewhere. The goal isn't to shout, "I'm rich," but to quietly signal that you belong to a certain class that understands taste and subtlety. This pressure for discretion means billionaires are less likely to seek the public spotlight in the first place. Then there's the political landscape. Many European countries have strong labor unions and left-leaning political traditions. There's a constant public debate about inequality. The idea of taxing the rich more heavily is not a radical, fringe idea. It's a mainstream political position. When politicians are regularly discussing wealth taxes and cracking down on tax havens, it creates an environment where celebrating billionaires feels a bit tone-deaf. The public conversation is geared more towards social justice and reducing inequality, rather than idolizing the figures at the very top of the economic ladder. Of course, this is a generalization. Things are slowly changing. The rise of the global tech scene and startup culture is starting to create a new generation of young, visible entrepreneurs in cities like Berlin, Stockholm, and London. Social media has also made the lifestyles of the rich more visible than ever before. But the underlying cultural bedrock is still there. The deep-seated skepticism towards concentrated wealth, the emphasis on the collective good, and the valuation of cultural and intellectual capital over pure financial success. So the next time you hear about a European billionaire you've never heard of, it's not because they're not successful. It's because they exist within a culture that simply has a different definition of success. It's a culture where the good life isn't necessarily about having the most money, but about living in a society that values well-being, culture, and community for everyone. It's not about hating the rich, it's just about not worshiping them. It's about seeing wealth for what it is, a tool, a result, but not the ultimate measure of a person or a society. And that in itself is a very rich perspective. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think one approach is better than the other? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more cultural deep dives. See you in the next video.